Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video. So what we're going to cover today is conditioning methods. Some of you may know this as cardio, but at the end of this presentation you'll have an understanding of if you wanted to do additional sessions on top of the Elevate training but you didn't want to do extra weight training and you want to do some more cardio slash conditioning, then this presentation will give you an overview of how you would achieve that. The main thing that I want to cover today is understanding the difference between aerobic and anaerobic conditioning. And that's not because I want to go all scientific on you and give you information that you don't necessarily need. I want you to understand why we're doing it. So when I tell you, when you ask me to what additional conditioning could I do, and I explain I want you working at this heart rate for this amount of time, I want you to understand why we're doing that and why we're simply not doing maybe what you'd see on Instagram or what you might see other people doing where it's really high intensity, jumping up and down, sprinting left and right. I want you to understand why we necessarily don't need that. And then from that, I want you to understand when you use each method. Very quickly then, just a quick overview on energy systems. So when we perform any exercise, whether it be an elevate, whether we run up the stairs, whether we go swimming with our kids, or whatever we're doing, we are using energy. Like this, our body needs fuel to perform that task. So if you look on the table on the top left here, the first three lines, they are what you call anaerobic. So basically, they are short and fast. If you look at the duration, 0 to 6 seconds, 6 seconds to 30 seconds, and 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Anything under that is predominantly anaerobic, okay? So as you'll hopefully, if you've been coming to Elevate, you'll recognize these time frames. This is what a lot of our conditioning is in Elevate at the end. Because we have a shorter time frame to get conditioning in, we predominantly work the anaerobic system at the end, all right? The bottom two lines are predominantly aerobic, which if you look on the right hand side is long and slow. And this is anything from 2 to 3 minutes, right the way up to like 60, 90 minutes work, okay? That is aerobic work. So this is predominantly where when you want to do extra sessions outside of Elevate, I want you guys and girls predominantly doing aerobic work because that doesn't necessarily get covered in Elevate. Although if you think about it, if we're working out in Elevate for an hour, it is aerobic because we're in there for an hour, but obviously the work to rest ratios, it isn't predominantly the best method to improve your aerobic capacity, all right? So on the bottom right, again, if you look, the red and blue line, they are predominantly anaerobic. So if you look, it's short periods, so it's below 60 seconds. It's anaerobic, and then as we get past 2 minutes, the green line takes over, and that's where the aerobic system kicks in. All right. And one final thing on this, just a very quick overview. Remember, energy systems don't work in isolation. So, for example, even if you are working for 10 seconds maximally, it's not purely anaerobic. There'll always be an element of aerobic capacity, okay? Because obviously your heart has to keep beating past the 10 seconds and stay aerobic to stay alive, all right? So don't think of them in like neat little boxes like I have done here where it's 0 to 6, 6 to 30. It's not necessarily like that. It gets grouped and there or thereabouts. That is the category of each movement. So the first system we're going to look at is the aerobic system, and we're going to look at aerobic conditioning. All right, this is predominantly what I want you to focus on. If you want to do additional conditioning slash cardio away from Elevate, I want you to utilize the aerobic conditioning. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of examples on sessions you could do. So first things first is, as it says on the screen there, anything post 60 seconds, regardless of the intensity level, becomes aerobic. All right. And also, even when you're doing short, sharp bursts like you're doing Elevate of anaerobic, it's underpinned by the aerobic capacity, okay? So what you've got to think is, when you do 10 seconds hard and 50 seconds recovery, during them 50 seconds, your ability to perform aerobically long and slow is what's going to help you recover to then go and perform short and fast, all right? So even if you were like a sprinter and you're only ever going to be working for 10 seconds, you still need to have a good aerobic base because you need to be able to recover to then repeat the movements, all right? So don't view the aerobic stuff as just long and slow because this underpins the short and fast stuff as well. This is the bottom of the pyramid almost, all right? Additionally to this, which is really important to people that elevate, research has shown that life expectancy is directly related to aerobic fitness, and it may help protect against premature death due to cardiovascular disease. So what you've got to think is, as we get older, we get into our 50s, our 60s, our 70s, and obviously we start getting health implications due to age, having an aerobic base can really help with this later on in life. So this is why it's important that we look after our body, not just physically in terms of how we look and aesthetically, but in terms of our heart. Aerobic conditioning can massively help your health of your heart, especially going into later life. All right. As it says here, the aerobic system is the most adaptable system. So when you think about it, your genetic, which I'll come on to in a second, anaerobically, so the short, sharp, fast stuff, that is very heavily dominated by your genetics. So that has a ceiling for every single individual, all right? There's only so much you can do to manipulate your short, sharp fitness, all right? But on the aerobic system, that's completely different. This can be heavily manipulated, so you can really improve your aerobic conditioning by doing more of it. Where if you do more anaerobic, you're going to hit a ceiling eventually. Where with aerobic conditioning, you can keep getting fitter and fitter and fitter and improving the overall health of your heart, okay? So as it says at the bottom there, the speed that energy is produced. So when we start exercising, if we want to use the aerobic energy system, we need to be long and slow, because as it says there, look, it gets produced like slower than other energy systems. So we need to be going past 2 minutes and then the aerobic system will kick in, okay? But on the opposite side, if we look, the ability to sustain energy output is very high. So this is where, when you're talking about weight loss, although weight loss, as we know, is underpinned by calories and protein and stuff like this can aid with weight loss, because when we start doing aerobic conditioning correctly, as it says here, the fuel used, if you look, there's multiple fuels being used here, depending on how long we perform the exercise. Ultimately, we can utilise fat stored underneath the skin, which obviously is predominantly what most people want when they're doing conditioning. So the aerobic conditioning is probably the most effective way to help you lose fat, on top of calorie deficits and tracking protein, tracking your calories, okay? So we'll move on to some example sessions now. So in terms of aerobic conditioning, I've put two methods on the screen here. So we've got cardiac output method and also tempo intervals, all right? So I'll go through cardiac output first. So here's the criteria here on the top left, all right? So what I want you to focus on is the duration, 30 to 60 minutes. That's important. And in less than 30 minutes, we might not get the adaptations we're seeking. This can go, the 60-minute side of life can go higher if you wanted. You could do 70, 80, 90, but I'm guessing most people watching this video would want it to be capped at 60, all right? Key things here, guidelines, zone 2, 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. So if you have a heart rate monitor, that's brilliant. If not, basically, this is steady state. So if we went on a run together, if we're running for 60 minutes, the whole 60 minutes, you should be able to hold a conversation. If you are holding a conversation, it is roughly zone 2, roughly 60-70% of your maximum heart rate, okay? If you can't hold a conversation, then you are going too fast and you need to slow down and bring the heart rate down, okay? This is the big thing. It's got to be steady state for it to improve our aerobic capacity, all right? So a couple of example sessions, bottom left here. The reason I've put run, row, ski, run, row, bike, run, ski, all these things, you can use whatever modality you want. So if you were into running, you would use running. If you're into rowing like myself, you'd use the rower. If you're not that bothered, you could do a mixture of them all. So the first session would be 30 to 60 minutes on any bit of equipment, steady state. So you might go out on the bike for 60 minutes, that's fine. You might go on the rower for 60 minutes, or you might go on a 60-minute steady state run, or anything from 30 to 60 minutes. That's session 1, really simple. The key thing is abiding to the guidelines in terms of the heart rate, okay? Next, to break that up, you might come into Elevate and you might do 10 minutes running outside, come in, do 10 minutes rowing, then do 10 minutes on the bike, and then you'd rotate that 2 times, which would be 60 minutes, 10 minutes on each. All right, that would be another session, and it would be the same. You keep your heart rate in this specific zone. Third session could be You would do a 10-minute run, you'd rest for 1 minute, shake off, and you'd repeat that 3 to 6 times. So that would, again, be 33 minutes to 66 minutes. Again, abiding by the heart rate. And the final one, again, another example, you could do a 1,000-meter ski, 10 rounds with 1 to 2 minute rest in between each round. Again, steady state, being able to hold the conversation, all right? If you wanted to go a little bit higher, a little bit more intense, and a little bit shorter, then you go to your tempo intervals, all right? So you go to 20 to 30 minutes. And now again, we're in the same heart rate zone. And the rest intervals we're going to use here will be 15 seconds hard, 45 seconds easy, all right? So what that's going to do, it's going to spike the heart rate, but not to the point that it's above 70%. Then the 45 seconds easy is going to lower it down to the bottom end of 60%, and then you're going to keep doing that. Spike it, bring it down. Spike it, bring it down. So it's shorter and a little bit more intense, but it still gets the same effect. All right. So a couple of examples here. You would go on the bike or the bike and the rower, and you do 10 rounds of 15 seconds hard, 45 seconds easy, and that would total 20 minutes. Okay. Second one you could do would be a run, and you do 30 rounds of 15 seconds fast pace, 45 seconds jog, and you just keep doing that for 30 minutes. Final one, you could use the row ski bike, and you do 10 rounds of 15 seconds hard, 45 seconds easy, and you do all three movements. So you do one round, and you do that 10 times, which would equal 30 minutes, all right? So here are a couple of example sessions, and if you've got any questions on that, please just let me know, all right? But these are the ones I'd expect to see you doing outside of Elevate, all right? So now we'll move on to anaerobic conditioning. So I'm not going to go into this side of life too much because we cover a lot of this in Elevate, okay? So just very quickly, anything anaerobic is short, sharp, and fast, okay? So literally none of every single thing we do in Elevate, minus the fact that it lasts an hour, is anaerobic. If you perform 10 bench presses, that's probably, let's say it's 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds, you will be working anaerobically, and you'll be working these energy systems here, okay? So as it says there, you produce the energy very high. The speed that you produce the energy is very quickly, all right? But here, as you look, the sustainability is very low. So if you're doing bench press, you can't perform that for 20 minutes, can you? Because you're going to fatigue because you're using this energy system. So this is where we need our work to rest ratios, and hopefully this will help you understand why when you're resting and Elevate during our reps and sets, when you're looking at me a bit like, can we get going now and do the next set? And I might say to you, no, you need to rest. This is why these energy systems need to replenish, because if we keep using them without the rest, the sustainability is just going to drop to the point that you can't perform the movements, all right? So anything in Elevate is predominantly anaerobic. When we're doing our rowing, when we're doing our slams, when we're doing our lifting, it's all anaerobic. It's short, sharp, fast movements, and the energy is produced quickly, but it fatigues quickly. So that's where we need our work to rest ratio, okay? Again, I won't spend too much time on this because this is what we do in our conditioning. So when you do conditioning at Elevate, it's using these two methods, okay? So it's ATP, power intervals, and glycotic power work, all right? So the top left criteria here, work interval is 7 to 10 seconds, and then rest intervals would be 2 to 3 minutes, okay? So there's a couple of example sessions here. Obviously, we manipulate this in Elevate to fit with the class timings and stuff like that. But if you were to do this on your own, you'd increase the work to rest ratio and have more rest per set, and allow for maximal power production. All right. So what we do in Elevate at the end is a little bit of a hybrid. So we have a little bit of anaerobic protocol with a little bit of aerobic protocol to ensure that you're getting like an array of conditioning in. But if you were doing true anaerobic conditioning, if you're an athlete, if you were doing a sport with the demands of repeated energy exertion, you would need to be having, for example, bottom right, you would do 20 seconds maximal sprint and then 3 minutes rest before you go back in and do your next set. So this is like more athletic development type stuff than day-to-day athlete and athlete to life. Athlete to life can benefit a lot more from aerobic work than anaerobic, okay? But yeah, a couple of sessions here that you could have a nose at if you were interested in trying some of these in your spare time. So a quick little recap then. Aerobic conditioning is probably your best bet in terms of extra conditioning, okay? So Elevate covers most your anaerobic work. So if you're interested in losing weight and losing fat and stuff like that, I would focus predominantly on the aerobic sessions that I've just mentioned there, all right? Remember, weight loss is driven by nutrition. So no matter how much cardio and conditioning you do, if your nutrition is not nailed, then you are not going to lose weight, okay? Steady state aerobic work can help speed up the process of weight loss. So if you are nailing your nutrition, everything's great. By adding some steady state conditioning in, this can help speed up the process, okay? Remember, high intensity should be done in small doses, short, fast, with plenty of rest. And then low intensity should be done in high doses, long, slow, with little to no rest, okay? So any questions, team, just let me know. Either drop me a message in the app or speak with myself or one of the coaches in Elevate.